A young boy's encounter with extraterrestrial beings visiting Earth sparks his quest to understand their motives, an answer that will leave him astounded. In 1979, Charles, a resident of Wrangell, Alaska, is driving home from work when he witnesses a startling event. A truck in front of him is suddenly lifted into the sky by an unseen force, causing it to crash onto his vehicle. He exits his truck to check on his friends, only to spot a UFO hovering above. Panic-stricken, he attempts to flee through the wilderness, but the UFO's beam ensnares him, rendering him immobile as he is lifted from the ground. Fast forward to the present day, Jack Cypress, a young man working at a NASA Jet Propulsion Lab, is engaged in a game with his friend Beck. Beck sends out a signal via NASA's satellites, and Jack's task is to locate it. Although Jack finds the signal effortlessly, Beck informs him that this is not the original signal. They trace the signal's origin to an unregistered location in Canada. Amused, Isaac duplicates the signal for Beck to find later. Later that night, Jack's computer picks up a mysterious transmission from space filled with nonsensical code. Intrigued, Jack's therapist suggests he start a video diary, prompting him to carry his camera everywhere. During a hike, Jack films his surroundings when a meteor lands nearby. As fighter jets and sirens signal an impending quarantine, Jack hides to avoid detection and approaches the crash site, where he encounters a UFO. He tries to film it, but the UFO vanishes, and an alien appears behind him. Jack discreetly records the alien before it walks away. Jack flees, but loses consciousness halfway through. He regains awareness 3 days later in an unfamiliar place. Reviewing his camera footage, he finds evidence of both the alien encounter and his levitation. He also notices a peculiar mark on his arm. Back home, Jack watches his TV disappear before his eyes and discovers he can pass his hand through an invisible barrier. He experiments further, realizing he can control the appearance and disappearance of objects. Isaac's X-ray reveals a straight-line fracture in his arm, suggesting it was cut precisely. He shows Beck his newfound ability to make objects disappear into other dimensions, but Beck can't see these changes. Isaac also shares the alien footage with Beck, who is astonished. Isaac proposes showing the footage to another colleague, but Beck disapproves. Feeling frustrated, Jack uploads the footage online with the title Alien Abduction Footage. The next morning, he wakes up to a call from a news anchor interested in his video. Astonished, Jack sees that his video has gone viral, accumulating nearly 1 million views overnight. The comments are divided, with some believing in its authenticity and others labeling it a hoax. As news outlets and magazines request interviews, Jack eventually agrees to appear on a news channel. During the interview, he explains his abduction story and presents the footage, hoping to reveal the truth. However, the interviewer ridicules him, questioning the convenience of having a camera during the encounter. Jack's story gains widespread attention, with public opinion split between supporters and skeptics. He searches online for similar abduction accounts and discovers parallels to his experience. He contacts Sarah, a woman with a similar story, and they meet. Sarah informs Jack about the 1979 Wrangell, Alaska abduction involving a man named Charles who vanished after going public. Determined, Jack sends copies of his footage to websites dedicated to reporting abductions. As he is about to mail them, he encounters Keith, a writer who believes the media is unjustly criticizing Jack. Keith offers to help Isaac by covering his side of the story in depth. Isaac considers Keith's proposal and agrees. At Keith's office, Keith suggests a lie detector test to lend credibility to Isaac's account. Jack consents, and after a series of questions, none of Jack's answers appear deceptive. However, Keith becomes anxious and leaves the office abruptly. Jack follows and encounters 2 men in suits who resemble agents. He tries to escape but is shot and loses consciousness. Jack wakes up being dragged by 2 androids into a sterile room where he sees Sarah also being held. Keith, now revealed as Agent Graves, informs Jack that they need to assess his exposure level. Various objects are presented to Jack to gauge his abilities, but he is unable to make them respond. When he demands to know his and Sarah's location, Graves questions him about Charles. Jack lies, denying any knowledge of Charles. Jack escapes by overpowering the androids and uses his mind to unlock Sarah's cell. They flee under gunfire and discover they are in Costa Rica. Graves instructs his team to follow Jack and Sarah, anticipating they will search for Charles and lead him to them. Jack believes accessing the internet might help him locate Charles. In a local restaurant, a woman directs them to Zed, a hacker who can provide internet access. Zed takes them to his jungle residence with an untraceable connection. Zed explains that the androids are part of the International Space Research Program, ISRP, a secretive organization. Zed's hacking efforts fail to locate Charles, so Jack recalls the mysterious signal from Canada. They hack into NASA's servers to trace the signal's origin, locating Charles. Zed arranges a video call with Charles, who initially rejects it, but Zed hacks his laptop to connect Jack. Jack shares his abduction story, mentioning that he sent Charles's signal into space and received a response. Charles decrypts the code, which reveals an alien message about their arrival 5 days later at Charles's location. Charles abruptly ends the call, and Jack insists they must go to Charles's house. Despite Sarah's reservations, Zed eagerly joins them. He arranges a private plane to Canada, while Graves, tracking them, continues his pursuit. Upon arriving at Charles's residence, Charles is initially wary but eventually welcomes them. He reveals that after his own abduction, he was taken by the ISRP but escaped. He has spent 20 years developing programs to translate alien codes into English, preparing to communicate with the aliens. In the days leading up to the aliens' arrival, Jack and Sarah grow closer while Zed examines Charles's equipment. On the anticipated day, Jack feels tremors as the aliens approach. He ventures into the woods, finds them, and learns they seek the universe's origin. The aliens reveal they have achieved mastery in all fields and now study humans for a unique aura that connects to the universe's origin. Sarah questions the markings on their arms, and an alien extracts a tracker from her arm. The aliens explain that, contrary to human belief, they've learned that believing is seeing. Just then, Graves and his team arrive, revealing a vendetta against Charles due to his father's disappearance during the 1979 abduction. Graves demands to know why his father was never found and, unable to get an answer, has Charles shot. Sarah is also hit when she rushes to Charles's aid. The alien instructs Isaac to focus and use his senses, which allows him to transport the entire house to another dimension, escaping Graves and his men. The aliens heal Sarah and Charles, and they all leave via the alien spacecraft. 6 months later, Jack and Sarah live a peaceful life on a remote island, now a couple. Meanwhile, Zed and Charles have started their own covert tech agency. Graves has been dismissed from the ISRP for his misconduct. Jack continues to document his experiences in video diaries.